Yeah, hello, this is Dave from cheapbooks.com playing World of Tanks. The tank I am playing is the Matilda IV. This is a Russian Tier 5 medium tank, and the map is Highway. I am going to get 7 kills in this game. I'm going to do 1900 damage, and I'm going to get 1300 EXP, and obviously I'm probably going to get the top damage and the top EXP for both teams. If you watch my videos, you'll know that I love this tank. It's one of the first tanks that I've owned. I get a lot of kills with this tank. When I roll this tank out, I expect to get 4, 5, or 6 kills. Now, on this particular map, there's really 2 ways to go. One is to head kind of towards the city. I like to go over here to where these bushes are, but you got to be really careful because it looks like you could roll into this bush and be safe, but I get spotted over here all the time, so you got to be very careful because obviously they'll be trying to spot you. The other place I try to go is towards this bridge area and behind the slope and into the town. You'll note that there's a sign here, and I parked behind here thinking it was a safe place, and people shot me through the sign. I mean, it looks like a solid object, but I had a game where lots of people just shot right through the sign and killed me, so I don't trust that area anymore. I was really worried about this game because we didn't have a lot of tanks that went to town. So I thought, okay, it's going to be a tough battle. I don't know if we're going to win in town. And you can see here's the bush that I roll into. Like I said, it's not the safest place. You got to be very careful when you're over here. I get spotted over here. Now, when you're shooting, if you're in this bush and you're shooting forward out here, you can get spotted if a tank is within your spotting distance because of what's called the smoke from the gun, the smoke from the powder. However, when your gun is pointed in this other direction and you're basically shooting through all these trees, you're far less likely to get detected. So it's a lot safer to shoot when there's large numbers of bushes in front of you. If there weren't, you'd have to spot the tank and then reverse backwards, probably more than I am right now, in order to shoot through the bush.
Permission to engage.
Now, the space, if you look at the mini-map, I hope you're familiar with this map. There's 2 buildings. There's a building right over here between the 2 enemy tanks. In fact, it's right there. It's pointed at the center of the screen, and then there's another one right here. So actually the 2 enemy tanks are between those 2 buildings. And those 2 buildings can be destroyed with a shot from your gun. But the point that I'm making is this tank here and this tank, you can see that the OI, I can't highlight him, but the Skoda I can, and they're really not that far apart. The difference is that what happens is the slope of the land changes. So when you're to the left, anybody that crosses over here, you can shoot at them, even if they're further back on the map. Anyone over here to the right going all the way down, if they're on the other side of that road, let's see if we can see the road. If they're on the other side of the road over here, you won't be able to shoot at them. But there is an exception, and that is where this tank is right now. If you look on the mini-map, you'll see that the Skoda is on the other side of the road, but I can see him completely. In fact, I can hit his tracks. So you can hit tanks once they pass this area, and they're on the left, and they're heading into the town, probably up into here. Otherwise, if you get up onto the hill here, you get a little bit of elevation, you might be able to hit other tanks such as the OI. So that's one of the little tips that you want to know. You want to know this, for example, the Skoda might think that he's safe there, but he's really not.
We didn't even scratch them. Penetration. Enemy is hit. Where'd they go?
So you can see there's a DW2. He must be, wherever he is, he's right next to the Skoda and I can't hit him. He must have been behind the building.
We didn't penetrate their armor.
And the DW2 is actually a great tank
Got him.
when it first came out. So this Type 95, right now I can't lock on him, but the more he goes to the left, increases the chance I'm going to be able to hit him. Right there.
Ready to fire. Target lost.
Now the good thing is, even though we have a poor presence in the town, the enemy also has a poor presence in the town. I don't know if you were noticing on the mini-map, but there were 3 enemy tanks a short distance ahead of me, which is why I decided to move forward. But more importantly, they're outside of my spotting range. So those tanks cannot see me when I'm shooting at them.
I don't see the target.
It's very dangerous to be out in the open. I'm heading to the right for a safer area.
Ready to fire.
I'm going to wait for him to stop
Where'd they go? Permission to engage.
or slow down.
Penetration. Target unlocked. Enemy armor is hit. Critical hit. Target acquired.
Oh, it's
Target
too
released.
bad.
Ready to fire. Target released. Ready to fire. Enemy is hit.
That's what you gotta do. You gotta turn and run.
Penetration. Target lost. Enemy vehicle destroyed.
Okay, so that's 2 kills. Now, you'll notice that Valentine, he's right at the edge of my draw range. If you look on the mini-map, there's a yellow circle. If I didn't go forward, I would not have been able to shoot at him. Well, at least not see him. I could have still shot. And he was a difficult one to go after.
Ready to fire.
And all my shots are missing.
Where'd they go?
Valentines actually have very good armor. So often, my ammo just won't penetrate them.
Ready to fire. Enemy armor is hit.
Now that tank right there actually has very thin armor, some of the thinnest armor in the game. So I could have used the high explosive rounds against that particular tank.
Critical hit. Penetration. Where'd they go?
Still got 2 kills. It's sad, you know, I had a lot of shots on him that didn't do any damage. I could have had an 8th kill. And even with the Valentine, I missed too many shots. Those 2 tanks would have been 9 kills.
Permission to engage. Penetration. Target lost. Enemy armor is destroyed. Target acquired. That one didn't go.
Now the AT-2 is a difficult tank to penetrate. The best way to do it is to get close to it or to have my allies shoot at him from the side. You'll note that my allies have pretty much disappeared from the town, and they disappeared from the northwest. I was a little bit concerned about this. It's very important to be aware of what tanks are remaining in the game. There's 2 SPGs, not that big of a threat. There's 4 other tanks. I'm not sure where they are. Obviously, there's 1 tank in front of me.
Where'd they go?
And I'm not a fast tank. Now, as you can imagine, these artillery units, I'm the only one that's left on this side of the map. So I spotted that artillery unit. He was obviously not in a good position. If he were in a bush, I would not have spotted him. It was a huge mistake. Whatever he was doing, maybe he was trying to go to a different position, but I was spotted also. if, you know, he should have known where I was.
Ready to fire. I don't see the target.
However, whether he stays alive, well, I know he's going to die. But he gave up his position, and I'm going to take advantage of those types of mistakes. There was obviously the artillery before him made a similar mistake. Again, it looks like he's not in a bush.
Target released. Enemy is hit. Critical hit.
Using the high explosive rounds.
Enemy armor is destroyed.
I was a little concerned. You can see that I had that incoming artillery hit. So I had the other artillery on my mind. Now there's an enemy heavy tank at my base that's capping. I was a little bit concerned about this, but I seem to recall that someone is going to take him out. There's 2 tanks in front of me. I'm worried about my gold rounds. I only have a limited supply of rounds. I have run out of ammo. I don't know if you have seen a recent video where I had 5 kills and 2 going up against 2 easy tanks, and I had no ammo, and I tried to ram them and it didn't work. Okay, so I wanted to save my ammo for the AT2, which is why I switched to the high explosive rounds, and I'm going to try and use high explosive rounds on these other tanks as much as possible.
Permission to engage. Critical hit. Let's find another target. We didn't penetrate their armor. Where'd they go? Ready to fire. Where'd they go? Enemy vehicle destroyed.
That's 5 kills. Now you'll notice that that should have been an incoming artillery shot. And based on the indicator, because the explosion was in front of me, it indicated an damage coming from the front, even though the artillery is actually behind me. Now there's various strategies for taking out these types of tanks. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to keep things in front of a solid objects, because if we're far away, he has an advantage. So I want these objects to be in the way so he can't shoot at me. He's also got a he probably has a rapid fire gun. I don't know how he has his configured. But those tanks can have a rapid fire gun option. Now when you play a tank destroyer and you're in this type of a situation, you got a tank coming after you, there's a lot of times where the tank gets behind you and shoots you in the back, and it's a big threat. The key is, when you play tank destroyers, such as the AT2, stay as far away from the enemy as possible. So it's to his advantage to be far away from me, and it's to my advantage to get closer to him. You're also going to notice that whatever the tank was, the heavy tank that was at the base, my base camping, he's gone. He died. But not only did he die, but my remaining allies at my base also died. So now the situation is, I've got my 5 kills, we've got the AT2 in front of me with half the hit points as me, and we've got an artillery unit who's a tier 3 somewhere out in the back. Okay, I'm going to show you how I went after the AT2, and like I said, there's a few different ways to do it. One of the obvious ways is to track the tank destroyer so he can't move, and you'll notice that I did not do that. What I chose to do instead was obviously to drive around him. But you'll notice that I fired my first shot, which did not penetrate. I've only got 8 gold rounds left. I decided to save my last shots until I get behind him in the back. And what he's going to do is he's going to try to reverse into me, and it's really not going to help him at all. You know, And it looks like maybe there was an artillery shot that came in also. So I got 6 kills. It's 14 to 14. There's one artillery left. You'll notice, I'm going to rewind so you can see what I did. When you're in this situation, the enemy artillery knows exactly where I am because I'm spotted. And I am going to kill the AT too.
Enemy armor is hit. One of our turrets is damaged.
And that's perfect for me, exactly what happened. And you want to touch the other tank. Because if you touch the other tank, he won't be able to move left or right. He won't be able to turn. And you could become glued to him. So it's a very good idea to have that happen. Now, if you look on the map, I'm going to point directly to their base, which is that way. And you'll notice that my tank is pointing down the hill, which would take me down into the river. And there's 3 ways to get to the enemy base. One is to go down into the river. And this, I'm talking about for the Matilda. If you've got a fast tank, you could go around to town, drive through and sneak up through the trees or something. So you go down to the river. The second way, I'm going to point to it on the map, is right over there where that building is. There's a gully that you can climb up a steep slope from the river, and you'll appear where this building is. And the third way is to take the northern route. Either way that you go, you want to stay in the trees as much as possible. However, because I was spotted, what I decided to do was I'm going to drive in one direction, and I'm going to count, 5 or 10 seconds. And once I get to the point where I think I'm not spotted anymore, I'm going to change directions. And the reason why is because I want the arty to think I'm coming from a different direction. And it's a key tactic that you always want to use at the end of the game. So I'm going to make the arty think that I'm heading down towards the water, and then at some point I'm just going to start heading north, and I'm going to take a northern route. So you can see at this point I am heading down towards the water. I'm intentionally aiming my tank to go more south so it's more convincing, and I'm weaving a little bit to avoid his incoming fire. However, I did make the decision. I said, you know what? I've gone far enough south. I'm probably unspotted. I'm going to start heading north now. And I told you that there was a ramp you could go up. The ramp is actually right here. There's this building here, and then there's this little slope over here. You can see when I zoom out, it's right over here. And you can climb that slope. However, this tank has very little power. And I was a little concerned about having to climb the slope without having a lot of power on my tank. So I decided to take this northern route, and I have an idea of where he might be. He actually wasn't where I expected him to be. A lot of artillery, they like to hide in the corner, so I kind of thought, oh, maybe he's just going to hide in the corner. You want to go through the bushes as much as possible, so drive through the bushes and maybe even stop for a second. Make sure you don't get spotted, because there's like a 2-second delay if you get spotted. So keep on heading for bushes. Plan your route to the next bushes. Got 6 minutes left in the game. I do have plenty of time, but I was concerned he might flee. Now I'm thinking, okay, he's probably somewhere in the back, which means I'm going to have to go to this set of bushes, climb up this hill, and maybe he'll be there. And I was not too worried about taking an early hit because I think I have enough hit points. I got pretty good armor. And you don't want to go over the top of the hill. It's better to go around the side. Going over the hill slows you down a lot, and it also puts your gun up in the air, so you really want to go around. But being spotted means that he couldn't possibly be behind the hill, and he's certainly not behind me, and I don't think he's in this area. So he's got to be somewhere else. Now, I've been spotted, and I haven't spotted him yet. So there's 2 things that are going to happen. Number 1, I'm going to have to guess where he is and charge him. I think they call it the Crazy Ivan or whatever. And the second option is when he fires, there's a good chance I'll spot him, because he has to have a The way that if he spots me and pulls back, it might be possible he could shoot at me without me knowing, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, I wasn't thinking very well, and I continued to look behind the hill. Wasn't thinking very straight. So he did fire his gun, and I did spot him. He did not go far back enough. He should have gone further backwards down the slope and then taken his shot. But the problem is, the more time he wastes by backing up to try and hide behind the slope, the more difficult it is for him to aim at me before I disappear.
Permission to engage. Let's find another target.
You'll note that I'm turning my tank to point my armor towards him, and you want the gun over the front track, but a little bit on the inside. And you can see that he is reversing. And as I'm approaching him, I'm not heading straight forward. I'm going to zigzag.
Enemy armor is damaged.
When I'm ready to fire, I stop. You can look at the reload timer. I'm going to stop. I'm only going to aim for, if that's, I believe it's a 4-second reload, that looks like 1 second of reload time. So I'm only going to allow it to aim for 1 second. He's only 145 meters. I don't need to aim it more. But what I did was I stopped, I aimed, and I shot, and then I moved, and then I stop, and I aim, and I shoot.
Got him.
And he's dead. He did do a little bit of damage to me, but Mr. Flarvin is now dead, and he missed his final shot. He didn't have that much of a chance. He would have had to hit me perhaps like 4 or 5 times in order to kill me. He is a tier 3. I am a tier 5. I've got great armor on the tank. I only had 5 rounds of ammo left, but you know, if it came down to a ramming match, I would have defeated him. Okay, so that's the Matilda IV. This is a Russian tier 5 medium tank. The map is highway. I got 7 kills. I did 1,900 damage. I did 1,300 EXP. 1,900 damage is very high for the Matilda. Now, in terms of the tank, it is a premium tank, which means that you can purchase it. Do I recommend the tank? Absolutely. I get 4, 5, 6, 7 kill games all the time. Every time I roll the tank out, I expect to get a lot of kills. The only exception is when your team is winning and you can't catch up to the action. So it kills a lot, even though it's not a high penetrating gun. Number 2, how does it compare to the Matilda BP? I had the Matilda IV first. I've had it for 2 years now. I prefer the Matilda IV over the BP. The BP has a faster firing gun, 2 seconds, but it does less damage per shot. So I highly recommend this tank. And in terms of other medium tanks in Tier 5, this is kind of a slow medium tank, so it kind of drives like a heavy tank. And the other Tier 5 heavy tanks are the Excelsior and the Churchill, and I think the Excelsior is the better tank. I've got an 81% win rate on my Excelsior. I get great games with the Excelsior. With the Churchill, first time I took it out, I got 5 kills. You're going to find that the guns are the same on these tanks. They're all heavily armored. Other Tier 5 tanks, off the top of my head, there's not that many. Maybe the Hydrostat is. The Hydrostat has a nice gun. The Hydrostat, between the Matilda and the Hydrostat, I would say you should consider the Hydrostat. I really like the Hydrostat, even though the armor is not that great. I've only played perhaps 1 game in the Hydrostat, but it's got good aim, it's got a good gun, it's relatively fast. So in terms of Tier 5, I would say pick the Excelsior over the Matilda, but other than that, it is still a good choice. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It was difficult at first to get used to the playing style. You're not going to like the fact that it's slow. However, once you get used to it and you treat it more like a heavy tank, I think you're going to like it. Okay, so that's the Matilda IV. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.